Antonio, what you do for yourself depends on what you think of yourself. And what you think of yourself depends on what you know of yourself. And what you know of yourself depends on what you've been what? Told of yourself. Yes, what you've been told. It's a lot of stuff going on around the planet, in the country, y'all. I tell you, we have to stay on top of it. We can't be deterred into some other insignificant stuff. We got to keep focused on what's going on. We got to play chess and not checkers, y'all. We got to think and say, okay, who's behind this? Follow the money trail, and who's best to benefit from things that are going on. We got to think out the box and around the box and through the box. And so, because all this stuff is going on and people are doing a lot of things, and a lot of things are going on. We got a great show for you today. Great show for you today. We got one of our returning favorites that's going to be joining us shortly. Look like this week or the next week or so, we're going to have good weather. So let's take advantage of this good weather. We don't know where September is going to go and what in September and October is going to bring us because of these weather swings and things like that. But hey, let's take the advantage of it and do the best we can with it, because guess what? Fall is right here. And up in Cleveland, you know what we're looking at. In the remote studio, we got our good brother Vince. What's going on, Vince?
Well, I looked at the weather today, and it looks like we're going to have a warm spell for the next week or so, and some
Yes.
chances of precipitation well when we get to the weekend. So we'll see
Mhm.
what happens with that. I just wanted to give you a heads up. We're going to be doing jazz at Larchmere Arts on the last Friday of the month, so mark your calendars for that. And also, the following week on October 5th, we are going to have George Lee. He is a very gifted and talented poet that's going to be bringing his brand of the spoken word to Larchmere Arts. And of course, we will have our host, Vish, and Elijah Gilmore on drums. So look forward to that. And as Brother Hamtonio said, we have one of our most prolific guests on the show
Mhm.
with us today. We're patiently awaiting him to log in as soon as he can. It is going to be mind blowing because when he comes, he always brings it. So we're looking forward to that conversation. He is Nana Kra Kwame II. And if you don't know, that is Dr. Quad David Whitaker. He is responsible for Wings Academy, which is where he will be broadcasting today. So we're waiting for Nana to join us, and we will enjoy the conversation that ensues.
Yeah.
Um,
Just let them know too. We gonna hit it and quit today, y'all. We just gonna do an hour, so don't get
right,
too
right.
comfortable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and in all transparency, Nana can go. So
Yes. That's
it,
what
it's really going to be sad,
difficult.
right, that we won't be able to let him, go full steam as he normally does. But I'm sure that he will bring something meaningful to us.
Mhm.
Antonio, I saw a video earlier this week, and it was about foundational Black Americans and
Mm-mm.
tethers. Have you heard the term tethers before?
Tethers. I don't know. No,
It
yeah. Go
it
ahead.
it, it was new to me, but apparently there is a rift between foundational Black Americans and Africans who come to America. And the
Mm,
whole controversy
mm,
is that
mm.
they essentially what we've been talking about, how some come here and think that they're better than us and think that
Mhm.
we're lazy, and we don't take advantage of this great country that we live in,
Mhm.
and they have
Mhm.
no idea what we have been through, and they have
Mhm.
no idea of the systems that have been in place to take us
Mhm.
to a place where we can't
Mhm.
succeed.
Mhm. And not just them. That's most foreigners. But go ahead. Mhm.
Yeah, well, that's the point,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so I responded on YouTube to the person that placed the video, and I asked him to look up Dr. Arikana Chiambori Kwao, and if he can't listen to her,
Mhm.
and get the idea that we're one family and we have need to and are in many instances working together to further our
Mm-hmm.
cause as a family, and then he came back and said, why weren't you saying this 15 years ago? 15 years ago is
Mm-hmm.
irrelevant. What's
Okay.
relevant is today. And we have proof through our guest that we are working together. There's
Yeah.
no question about it.
I mean, that's a serious. If I have the opportunity to transplant myself, or at least divide myself between the two continents, that's one of the missions that I'm going to stay on, trying to uh, bring understanding to both sides. We both have been duped about each other, and we must understand that is the game plan. They've been using that method for the longest. See, and unfortunately, like the Africans and most of foreigners, they don't know our story. Some stuff that I've written. I said, to be citizens over here, I wonder what curriculum that they are teaching them. Are they just saying, just speaking briefly about slavery, about black folks? Are they really telling foreigners about our contributions and how we paved the way and been civil and been the consciousness and the moral compass of this particular country? Yeah, are they telling them anything like that? I would love to sit in and see what the curriculum is that in order for them to get citizenship. So the system itself, again, is part to blame for that type of attitude as well. But again, education is the key, and that's a mission I think that we have to live with. But we need to let our brothers and sisters know over here that that's not the majority thought, over there in Africa. It's a lot. You have some people who may think like that, and of course, you got to think about if you're dealing with a country that is a third world country, and they seeing all the glamour and glitz over here in America, and we sitting over here, they're gonna naturally think that it's the streets run with milk and honey, and and you could just go down there and do it. But a lot of them change their ways when they get into the real thick of this thing called America, and a lot of them is going back, taking their riches and going back. So, that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting having been to Africa several times. One of the complaints that we have about Africa, and I can speak in terms of Ghana, is just the condition of the roads.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a good since I've been there, and I'm pretty sure that there have been some improvements made.
Yes.
But as
Mm-hmm.
I drive around this community and I look at the condition of these roads, it's like, we ain't, have you ever driven down Terrace Drive? You get to Forest Hill and Terrace Boulevard.
Oh, dude, that's rough right there. That's rough. That's rough
Man,
right
they
there.
had to block the street off because the road was so bad. It was like you could navigate your vehicle down that road.
You know.
And I know East Cleveland is probably,
Mm,
a bad example to bring up, but just in general,
mm,
driving back and forth between here and Chillicothe, the condition of the freeways,
mm-hmm.
you know, eh,
See, but here's the thing, though, Vince. We got to, and Doc checks me on that at times. And I would even say some things about, yeah, I mean, not roads conditions and outside toilets and stuff. I'm past that. You know what I mean? That you got to make the decision on far as living and morals and things of that nature in this country in comparison. I mean, okay, you might have a little bumpy road here and there. I mean, does that weigh up against you feeling comfortable around black folks, about around culture, not worried about a drive-by or or eating organic food or something? Which one is more important, that you got to take a little slower ride because you on certain areas you got a bumpy road? Which one is more important to you? Or you might visit somebody and they got a outside toilet or something. You know what I mean? Okay, what's more important to you, getting treated and shot down like dogs in here and discriminated on every front that you get in, that you come upon and dress, or are you worried about some bumpy roads? Which one is more important? Or what's going down now where we might have some some serious civil unrest going on in this country, and you feeling unsafe in any being in any type of crowd participation, or are you worried about something else? You know what I'm saying? You got to come on now. And you bring that talent and you bring what you can offer to a developing situation, then help change the situation. So that's how I look at it. But some
Yeah,
people may not can't get that, can't get there, but that's where I'm at.
yeah. Well, one thing that I'm noticing, Hamtonio, is that there are a number of people in our society who have taken it upon themselves to do what is necessary to move the needle. There are a lot of people who complain about how things are. There are a lot of people who are trapped in the cycle of negativity. For instance, when I was at home, thankfully, the TV set wasn't on in the family room. My sister-in-law came in and she was glued to her phone and she's talking about some shooting that happened somewhere, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and it's like we get so caught up in negative event after negative event after negative event. And many times, for instance, what happened in Minnesota? I don't know what happened in Minnesota. I'm sure the people who are there care about it, but I'm not going to expend a whole lot of energy being invested in all the details and all the particulars and all of that, because that's the nature of the news that they deliver to us. They want us to be caught up in it. And the whole time that we're caught up in that, we're not focused on what we should be doing and could be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm realizing more and more that we are infinite beings. We're infinite conscious beings. And you can use whatever term you want to use to claim that or defeat it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But that's who and what we are. And when we wake up to who we are, that's when we become effective in doing whatever it is that we put our minds to do. We have been joined by Nana Kra Kwamina II. You'll notice that when we put up the description for this program, we didn't say Dr. Quad David Whitaker. We said Nana Kra Kwamina II. And I thought that I should probably change my moniker on here to Baba Yao Ansa because I was named Baba Yao Ansa by Nana Kra Kwamina II. And I am eternally grateful to him for giving me that identity. Nana, how are you today?
I'm good. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. I've been listening to all the comments, but I couldn't figure out what I hadn't done to be included in the,
Okay.
in the trio. But
Okay.
I've been distracted by one other thing is trading time between 11 and 11:30, so I'm trying to monitor that too. But I've listened to your conversation, and I would throw out to the audience this question: how would you expect a rabid dog to act?
A rabid dog.
How would you expect a rabid dog to act? You probably are familiar with rabies.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is. So you wouldn't try to teach a rabid dog new tricks to go fetch a bone because you know it's infected by something that is beyond its control. So you wouldn't have the expectation that it would roll over, sit up, be quiet. So I'm saying all of that to say we have to begin to recognize the reality that many of our people are suffering from perpetual traumatic stress disorder. And we're asking them to act normal. The people on the continent, many of them, most of them to one degree or another, are dealing with post colonial stress disorder. And we're asking them to understand our situation. They're asking us to understand their situation. And we're all suffering from trauma that has been brought on by 25 generations of exploitation, abuse, murder, rape. And so, in some senses, we're asking too much.
Mm-hmm.
And when we hear certain things, my I've become less intolerant just to realize that people are hurting. They only know what they know. They've only been taught what somebody wanted them to know. They have internalized all of the wrong ideas. And so, if we treat them as if they are in need of some kind of treatment, some kind of re indoctrination, and we would be less worried about them and more concerned about how we might forge the path to the better direction. And to Yao's comment, when I go to Ghana, the roads are bad. But I would be much more interested in improving the minds of the people than the roads they ride on.
Okay.
A stupid person riding on a freshly paved road is of no use to me. An ignorant person in a pristine environment is not useful to anybody. So, as Dr. Arikana is always talking about, as a result of colonialism, enslavement, it's our minds that need the most work.
Mm-hmm.
Because if our minds were working, we could easily fix the roads. If our minds were working, we could easily get along and get rid of this global oppression and abuse that we experience. If our minds were working right, we could actually come together and do things that will protect our interests if our minds were right. And so, as you know, I'm speaking to the choir right now because we are engaged in a number of efforts, including this show, to try to demonstrate, try to improve, and try to set an example of what could happen if we could get on the proverbial same page. And as John Henry Clark says, African people, black people, they could change the whole world if they did anything together, even if it was the wrong thing.
Right.
If we did the wrong thing together, it would change the world. So I'm in agreement with everything you've been saying. And even though time is passing and we're getting older every day, I'm still inspired by the possibility that we can change our minds.
Mm-hmm.
What did uh, what did Gil Scott Heron's group say? Uh, Niggas afraid of revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Revolution is nothing but change,
Mm-hmm.
and we change every day. But we
Mm-hmm.
can change our mind and decide once and for all at any moment that we're going to try to work together. We're going to accept the fact that we're not perfect. We're going to accept the fact that we're going to run into some potholes
Mm-hmm.
along the proverbial road to doing whatever we want to do. But we could also commit ourselves to say that we're going to stick with each other and see it through one way or the other, as Malcolm said, by any means necessary. We're going
Mm-hmm.
to do what we have to do, no matter how much it might aggravate us, because we know that that is the potential answer to these our problems, whatever they are. If we could just get together, and all the energy that's devoted to keeping us separated should tell us how important it is to be together.
Somebody went through some serious efforts, huh?
And into keeping us apart.
Yes,
That
yes.
must be a key puzzle piece to this mystery. John Henry
Mm-hmm.
Clark said one time, he said, if we were naturally inferior, why would it be necessary to put your foot on people? Put your thumb on. If you're naturally inferior, inferior things usually go to an inferior position all by itself. You don't have to help something inferior to end up at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So if
True.
we were actually inferior, nobody would have to do anything to keep us down. We would be down naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So the mere fact that all of this energy, global orchestration, centuries of behavior, attacking every potential leader, any charismatic person that looks like they might be able to pull us together is a threat somehow.
Good point.
Because
Yeah.
unity must be so valuable and such a threat that any semblance of unity must be attacked. Whether it's Ibrahim Traore and the Sahel Alliance, or it was Malcolm, or it was Martin, or it's Minister Farrakhan, no matter who it is, it seems like anytime there's the possibility that the people may be brought together, that in and of itself is the threat.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they aren't going to do anything, even if they're just going to say no, our
Mm-hmm.
unity is such a potential threat that a whole system, a whole global system of supremacy will attack any effort that appears like it's leading in that direction. That should tell us something. That
Mm-hmm.
should show us that that's the key. We've tried everything else except that.
Mm, absolutely. And you know, and they go, you know, well said, Doc. Well said. If you can't get that one, I don't know what to say to you. You know, it's almost like you can equate that to voting in this one sense of the word. We in this system, you know, they you know, offer us the opportunity to vote. But again, you know, taking over the media, vote, things of that nature, anybody putting in that kind of effort to do something, there must be some value in it. You know, that's just common sense right there. So why does the man work so hard, you know, to keep his foot on our neck and to do the things that he do, you know, and take care of and take and make sure he control all the entertainment industry because you know we like entertainment. So he wants to regulate the type of entertainment that we like for ourselves. You know, he wants to regulate all the news that you receive, and it's all about control. I mean, so you couldn't have said it any better, Doc. You know, and we should understand that,
Let,
and
let me
we need to understand, you know, that a lot of the stuff that's been imposed on us over here was already going on over in Africa. We tend to forget that. You know. Go ahead, Doc.
let me give you a tidbit that I came across a couple of weeks ago, and it made perfect sense to me, but it's something I hadn't given any thought to, and school hadn't taught us. School is told us that at some point women had the right gained the right to vote. Uh, they didn't separate women; they made it as if it was a collective clause, when we know it didn't include the women that were enslaved or recently uh, extricated from the process of enslavement. But someone confessed that Rockefeller, they sat and had the idea of giving the women the right to vote, but it wasn't because they became morally sound. They gave it with the explanation was women gained the right to vote because the white men believed that as soon as they got the right to vote, they'd want to participate more in the system of the republic, and they'd want to go to work so that they would earn their own money. And the men knew that if they went to work, they would have to do something with their children, and they would turn their children over to schools to indoctrinate their children, and they would pay taxes. So the women got the right to vote, to pay taxes, go get jobs, and leave their children to the whims of the men that would determine what they needed to be taught. So it was a
Mm,
masterful strategy if you think about it.
mm.
They had the children from the age of 5, and they could indoctrinate them into and make them into whatever they want to make them into, while the
Mm,
women are feeling empowered, making money, paying taxes, generating revenue for the system, and giving up the next generations to the men to put ideas in their minds and get them to reinforce the very system that
mm,
everybody's trying to change. And we have been victims of that too. Everything we've learned about history is designed to convince us that we never did anything. That's the whole purpose, to convince us that we never contributed anything. And when you try to explain to people that you did all these things, they say, well, that ain't nothing. That ain't nothing. That ain't nothing. All these nothings add up to something. But if your mind is not thinking critically and you're just listening to CNN and NBC and or clicks on YouTube or social media, we have people believing that they know something and they're just as ignorant as they've ever been in their whole life. They're just repeating things. They don't study, they don't think about, they don't analyze one thing. They just repeat something as if that's data, as if it's the result of some uh, decades long research project. It's something they heard on social media and it got so many clicks that people said that's true. So we've been all victimized by these things, and we have to be willing to look at facts and say, you know, I've been duped. I was duped. I got tricked. I got played. We get played every day, one way or another. So there's nothing wrong with saying I got played, but to play yourself, now that's just foolish. You playing yourself. You playing yourself. You telling yourself stories that you just making up in your mind. When history shows you all this factual data that's almost it's almost irrefutable, and you still deny that because it didn't come on CNN. Anderson Cooper didn't say it, so therefore it doesn't mean anything. And so we have to dismiss and abandon this whole thing that we've been told and getting engaged in a quest for some real information that's backed up by history, that's supported by documentation, evidence that we can still see standing. We see pyramids in Kemet, and we agree that aliens came to Earth and built that. That's what we do because that's what they said.
But Doc, here's the thing, though. Being in your profession, Doc, you know, and people tell me, hey, people arrive at different points at different times. You know, you plant the seed and things of that. But I'm having trouble, Doc. I'm having trouble for something that you just alluded to about critical analysis. You know, I've said this before. Brother Steve, called me and commented on it, but we would get upset with our neighbors running on your grass and have an attitude towards them for 2 years because he ran on your grass. But here you got 400 years of the man showing you he got no love from you. He's still doing it to the day, and you still value his opinion on everything. You don't look back and say, I mean, come on, you 40, 50, 60 years old. And just by observation, you should say, sit back, do some critical analysis and say, okay, yes, something is wrong with this picture here. I'm getting one side of this story. How come information is limited when I about our history? We keep finding new things that happened in this country that was hidden. So that you know who you're dealing with and who you're playing with that. So I'm saying to myself, is that what psychologically is going on, and then what is some psychological solutions that we can due to time. I know we can't stay too long today, but what are some solutions? What should we be doing, Doc? Because I know Dr. Amos Wilson said sometimes we pay too much attention to the system and what light-skinned folks are doing. If we just change our mindset, they would have no choice but to change. Once you change, he has no choice but to change because you change. Your thoughts, Doc?
Well, let me first back up for a second. I can see on Yao's face that there's something he wants to touch on or ask about or comment about. So let's do that.
Who that, Vince?
What I was thinking about was the show that we did last week. We were talking about Senate Bill 1 and the impact that it's had on the education system. And one of the things that came up in that conversation was the necessity for us to have our own education, because the education that we have received from the other side of things has not served us well. And I'm sitting at a screen looking at someone who has a school that is teaching young black children about themselves, who they are, and what they should be doing with their lives. So I just wanted to get from you what your perspective is on the feasibility of having a more extensive education system that's for us, by us, and meeting our needs.
We're back to the same conversation. You need a certain mental consciousness to move in a direction like that. So if you don't have the consciousness, it's difficult to rally people to thinking that. But let me mention about the education that we receive in the United States. This education was created at the end of the enslavement of African people. And the question came up, what are we going to do with all of these people that now are not working on plantations in the way that we had? So we have to transition to something else. The something else is the educational system that was created by the General Education Board, sponsored and, and generated mostly by Rockefeller. The General Education Board had two objectives that have played out. The first meeting of the Education Board, I read from the records of the Smithsonian. They had a lot of excitement about the people that were going to serve on this board or the committees to start this process. They were very excited about possibly getting new doctors and accountants and surgeons and inventors and all kinds of things. And they were cautioned that this initial board meeting, that's not what this is about. We are not looking for new lawyers, doctors, surgeons, astronauts, scientists. We got plenty of those. The purpose of the education system that we still have today was to accomplish two specific things. Number one, it was to teach the former slave that it is all right to be in a position of second class citizenship. There's nothing wrong with that. Get used to that. The second was to instill, and I'm going to suggest that you're going to be surprised, but you're going to see this everywhere. The second objective of the education system that we have as it was designed was to help the former enslaved people to be comfortable with the idea of having fun. So if you look around at the society, the whole society is based on having fun. When students are picked up at the end of a school day, the first question that a disproportionate number of their parents ask them is, did you have fun today? Not did you learn anything, not did you come more disciplined, not did you come more focused on anything, but did you have fun? So the whole education system is based on us learning how to be satisfied with just having fun and be satisfied with the fact that we're in a second class position and we're not going to get out of that. And so if we look at the administration today, all of the efforts to move us out of a second class citizenship position by all of our freedom fighters, our activists, the whole agenda now is to roll all of that back, all of it. So the education is doing just what it was designed to do. And we have a misconception, most of our people, when they say, well, the system is broken. I said, the system is not broken. It just doesn't work for you. The system works fine for the people that designed it.
Mhm.
Matter of fact, it's on automatic pilot now because the people that it was designed to oppress want to reinforce the very system that oppresses them. How could it be working any better than that? You say it's broken. It's on automatic pilot now.
Yes.
So you want what the oppressor wanted when they designed the system, and you can't see that you're in a trick bag. And
Mhm.
if other people come and say, this is not working for us, they say, well, you just have to work harder. The reality is, if you work harder doing the wrong thing, it's even more wrong than it was if you didn't work at it. You're perfecting the thing that's wrong. You're not
Mhm.
changing it, you're perfecting it.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I think, to go back to the question, Ericana is saying it all the time. All of our scholars, all of our researchers have basically said the same thing. We have to be more critically analytic
Mhm.
and look at the situation around us and not be afraid to say we have been tricked. And what do we do to get out of the trick?
Yes.
The other comment I would make, uh, uh, Lynn, is that we used to say growing up that everybody ain't going.
Mhm.
And how many people do we need to get something done? The military shows us that the Navy SEALs is not a big whole brigade of people. Look at all that time they spent trying to get bin Laden. War goes on for all these years, but you have a small strike force of trained Navy SEALs, and they can go get him. We can have a small cadre of like minded people that can go do things, and we can get it done. And
Mhm.
most of the people are followers anyway.
Yes.
So we don't need all these people to be leaders. And for African people, we are unlike the non Africans. See, non African people don't need a community. They grew up in environments where it was one person is trying to survive. And they have created this artificial notion that they were rugged individualists. They were actually in a situation where it was just you against the elements trying to survive. So that has become part of their DNA. They can actually function on a concept of me, 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 me.
Yes.
On
Mhm.
the other hand, we grew up in the climate of Mother Africa, where almost everything we needed for survival was provided by nature itself. So we could actually think about other concepts like leadership, community, structure. If you're living in the Arctic, you don't need to be a moral person. You just need to find something to eat. You
Mhm.
don't need to have good character because it's just you and your family. You don't need to be dependable. You don't need to develop these character traits that are very important to us. If you got 10 people that's going to be together, you got to come up with some kind of rules, some kind
Yes.
of structure, some kind of expectations, because these people have to get along and they have to do things together. If you're growing up in the ice age, you don't need that. That's not what you need. That's not part of your DNA. So the worst thing that we do, to me, the most asinine thing to do, is we should recognize that we are by nature a communal people. We have to function with each other. So the worst thing we can do is to begin to behave as if we developed in the Ice Age. So we are going against our very nature. The more we try to mimic the behavior of people that don't need anybody, so they can sacrifice somebody and not think about it. The police can shoot you and not have any regrets. The courts can exonerate this person or acquit this person that clearly killed somebody and it was wrong. So we're dealing with two different sets of DNA, two different developmental patterns over thousands of years, where we have to have each other in order to function at the optimal. A person that's grown up in the Ice Age, they only need themselves to be functioning at an optimal level to survive. We need more than that. And that's our big flaw. That's one of our big flaws. We don't seem to see that.
But Doc, ain't that natural? That's how the Creator put everything together. Everything is balanced and working off each other. That's a natural state of being.
Now, I would push back a little bit and say natural for who?
I'm talking for, well, I'm thinking on how the Creator, put. If you look at the ecosystem and everything else around you, it works like that, and it seems like naturally mankind should work like that.
Now, if you, that's why we pour libation, isn't it? We pour libation to remind ourselves that we are part of a large ecosystem that was created by the Creator. And it has certain rules and certain provisions that are obvious to us in nature. Who in their right mind would destroy the air? Who in their right mind would destroy the water? The ozone layer. Think about it. Think about how crazy this has to be.
Block the sun.
Life-giving sources to sustain your existence. You act as if you could destroy that and not destroy yourself. Wow. That's a demented mind, or that's a mind that doesn't think. So when we pour libation, we're trying to remind ourselves and acknowledge to the forces in the universe that we understand that we are a very small part of a large apparatus that has rules. Ma'at is all about keeping those rules in line so that our survival will continue, so we will prosper. So we're living in a time where people are thinking that, who would think that it makes any sense, even if you could do it, to block out the sun? What sense would that make? The sun is the life-giving force for the planet. So you have to be crazy if you hear somebody even suggesting such a thing. They're either out of touch with reality and therefore, by definition, are mentally ill, or they think they could be God themselves, which makes no sense. So it's natural for us, if we understood it.
If their agenda is to reduce population, though, it makes perfect sense. That's why they want to block the sun, because they want to kill people because we need the sun.
Right. Well, so I would say that's the evidence of what makes us different from other people. And therefore, it would make perfect sense for us to not follow that.
Separate. Yes, exactly.
Separate ourselves. That's crazy.
Yes.
But it's not crazy to, a rabid dog doesn't see itself acting crazy. It's ill. So these people are ill. They're just ill. They're mentally ill. And the best thing for us to do is not associate with mentally ill people. and certainly not expect them to behave as if they're not mentally ill,
Mm-hmm.
because their condition prevents them from seeing our point of view.
Mm-hmm.
They say, well, there's too, now crazy in a way, but at the same time, it's not so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
People on the planet are the only ones saying that there's too many people on the planet. Nobody else is saying that. Nobody
I
else
found
is
it.
saying that. The
Hey, hey,
smallest
hey,
population is saying
hey, Doc.
there's too many for them.
Mm-hmm. And that brings me to, and I look at it, because people who might have been on cruises and went to the Caribbean and all that, you'll go through there and say this island is founded by the Dutch, and the Portuguese is run this one, and the Spanish run this one. It's almost like they play Monopoly game with the continent. And I'm saying, for a group of people that has the less population on the planet, but they going around the whole world trying to conquer land space everywhere they go and claiming it like a Monopoly game. When they land on it, okay, this is mine. Now you got to pay me. It's crazy.
Well, Frances Cress Welsing, our dear, dear ancestor now, she explained all of this to us, and we didn't all get the message. But if you're in a small, small minority, we're talking about people that only represent less than maybe 4% of the
Yes.
global population.
Mm-hmm.
So Francis Cress Welsing told us a long time ago, if things are left unchecked and you represent 4%, let's say 10% of a global population, and everybody gets along and you just get involved with one another, you could birth this population of people out of existence just by interacting with each other freely. You could, through the process of natural intercourse and reproduction, these people would be removed from the planet fairly quickly. So, in order to protect yourself and maintain yourself, you'd have to figure ways to control all this other population that has the potential to annihilate you just in the
Wow.
normal course of
Wow.
human behavior.
For sure.
So you have to protect yourself
Mm-hmm.
against 90% of the global population. That's what she said. Now that makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look around the planet and you say you take that as a premise, then all this behavior could be designed to make sure we are not eliminated in the normal course of human behavior. So we
Mm-hmm.
have to quarantine all these other people. We have to pass legislation that says you cannot marry somebody outside of your race with this person. You can't interact with them because it's too much of a threat. You're
Mm-hmm.
only one childbirth away from changing that family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you're a non-African family and you get involved with an African person, we know what happens. The genetics of the African person begins to impact the genetics of the offspring. And
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4 generations later, you don't have those people anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you say, well, they're dealing with survival and we're dealing with community. So how would you do it?
But I would have to ask the question, how can they survive without us if their birth rates are declining to the extent that they are? The median age of a European woman is something like 40, and they're dying faster than they're being born. So it's only a matter of time before they cease to exist.
Well, you've articulated what we always would say in the community. They're between a rock and a hard place. There's
Mm-hmm.
no way out of this. That's the reality. There's no way out of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you if you interact with other people outside your own genetics, you gradually disappear through that process. If
Well,
you do nothing at all,
mhm.
2/3 of the people we're talking about in the US are my age. It's only a decade left, even if your health is good. So that's going to be 2/3 of the people we're talking about right now, because it's an aging population. You
Mhm.
can't go back and redo it. You can't go back and have babies now after the fact.
Mhm.
So my theory is, because of what you're saying, y'all, is there are people, most of the people don't even know what we're talking about right now. The vast majority of people walking around, they're just going to the Cavs game. That's all they're doing.
Mhm.
So they're not thinking about this like we're thinking about this.
Mhm.
But there
Mhm.
are certain people that are, and those people have the power to do certain things. Some of them are desperate. They know that the game is over. So what are they going to do? They're going to go out fighting. They're going to go down swinging. They're going to go down taking as many as they can take.
Mhm.
No, they can't get out.
Mhm.
No, it can't. You can't redo it. But they said, well, I'm going to get as many as I can get. It's like in a war. You're going to run up the hill. I know they're going to get me. I know I'm going to eventually die. But if I can take out 10 of them, it's going to be okay. That's the best I can do. But you've described it aptly. There's no way out of this.
Mhm. But Doc, let me. Yeah, it ain't quelling their effort. That's for sure. And and this may seem a little bit out there, a little bit, but you can see it in your face. I mean, it's right in your face. This is why I'm thinking this the whole cloning business, the IA business. They're working tirelessly, I think, to try to mesh intelligence with robotics or consciousness with AI. To yeah, I mean we seen a glimpse of that on Get Out. What they was trying to do. I mean, we can't sit here and think that they ain't thinking about how they can save their genes or reproduce themselves or they can live forever. We cannot sit back on the side and don't think they're not thinking like that.
Well, if we think about it, all the things are logical, but because we've done these things ourselves. We've all been in situations where we look at our situation and we say to ourselves, what have I got to lose? Either way, I can't get out of this. So what have I got to lose? What have I got to lose if I did this? What have I got to lose if I did something different? Because I'm in between a rock and a hard place. So you have nothing to lose, because either way, the dilemma doesn't pan out. The equation doesn't work. So there's some people that's saying, and we won't name them by name, but they say, well, we can we can eliminate these people by the food we give them. We can eliminate them by the vaccines, inoculations we give them. We can
Sterilization,
eliminate them by the water that they get. We can
make them sterile.
eliminate them. So there's some people that are focused on elimination, because they say to themselves, what have I got to lose? I'm in a losing position and it's irreversible. So what have I got to lose if this doesn't work or that doesn't work? But I'll just keep trying. I'll just keep trying. So my whole life now is devoted to how many of the enemy, quote unquote, can I take out? And if we just step back and be objective and not be shy about seeing the sunlight that's right there, we can see that this has to be the agenda in some people's minds, because they're unrelenting. Every time you turn around, it's a new way to cause harm to people.
Yes.
I'll buy up all the farmland. We'll buy up all the farmland, put sanctions on every nation in the world that provides grain or provides something we need, to force the population into genetically modified stuff. That's a strategic move. We'll take away all your options so that, like in Training Day, Denzel says, you want to go to jail or you want to go home? everybody's going to say, I want to go home.
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to take away all of the options we have to force us into a path that leads to where they want to go. Just like if you're cattle farming, at some point you got to slaughter all this beef. You're not going to rely on the fact that the steer are going to decide that they're just going to walk into the slaughterhouse. You got to provide the funnel to force them in there. Nobody's going to just go in there and say, okay, I'm going to sacrifice myself. I know what your agenda is important. Nobody's going to do that. So they're forcing us in. They take away the information that would guide you anywhere else so that you go down this path. If you start to question that path, you get attacked for spreading disinformation. But
we have a minute 15 seconds left before we have to conclude the broadcast, and unfortunately we're not able to extend the broadcast as we normally do, but we want to thank you for being with us, Nana. Perhaps we can do a part 2 next week and open things up and expound upon what you just brought to us. But I want to thank you for joining us today. I also want to encourage those of you who are listening by radio. You can also check us out on our YouTube channels. The Journey with Antonio and Vince Robinson is my channel. Please go by there, subscribe to the channels, like, comment, and share this information, because you're not getting this on mainstream media, but right now you are. How about that? We also want to thank our engineer, Tone Harley, who makes it possible for us to do this as he does every week, and we are eternally grateful to him for doing that. With all that said, folks, join us on YouTube next week, and know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, and make today your absolute best day. Peace.
Peace,
Okay.
peace.
But I see.
And that's it.